Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you, everyone who joined Alex and I yesterday on an impromptu live stream that got going in about 5 minutes and streamed 10 minutes later. It's at 10,000 views. So thanks, guys, for showing up and I guess sharing your misery with all of us.
Yeah, a lot of angst in the fan base right now, and we'll get into some of that. I was hoping that today's signings would kind of squash some of the angst. That has not happened just quite yet. So we'll discuss a lot today. Our plan is to do one of these shows every single night, and so we'll as much as we can, anyways. And so we'll hopefully see some progress throughout the week, but. Yeah, obviously you guys are here, you know what's been going on, and if you don't, we will be kind of recapping and things like that. I have some information on what went behind the scenes to Khalil Mack as well as Poona Ford's decision. So all of that has come out, not all of it, the bulk of that has come out in our Discord. So if you're not in our Discord, definitely go check that out. You can join in on the Discord through YouTube membership as well as our Patreon page. And there were 10,000 views on this channel yesterday, and there were a lot of people who were watching who were not subscribed. So we would really, really appreciate it if you guys that did watch it and will continue to watch it will take a second and go subscribe for us. That'd be great.
Yeah, if you subscribe, they'll sign Amari Cooper.
Hey, we'll take it.
How about that, guys? Don't unsubscribe now.
Yeah, don't unsubscribe. Unsubscribe and rescribe if you're going to do that. Yeah. But yeah, so like I mentioned, we are going to touch on a few things today. We are going to start with the Najee Harris rumors. Again, speaking of the Discord, this is something that Alex Katzen shared in the Discord coming out of the combine. There was a lot of buzz between the Chargers and the Raiders. That's what this is coming down to. Both of those teams are vying for Najee Harris's services. There's been a lot of comments on Twitter that Najee Harris would just come be the backup, and the Chargers should are still going to take a running back at 22, or the Chargers will still bring back J.K. Dobbins. That is not true. If he does sign with the Chargers, he is going to be their RB1. He is going to be somebody that will command upwards of 18 to 22 touches a game. That's the reason why you are signing Najee Harris to be your workhorse running back, and his contract projection at PFF was, I think, $11 million a year. That's not getting lower than that. You are potentially paying more than that with the way that Aaron Jones' contract went and things like that. So that's kind of the aspect that we kind of know is the truth. It is going to cost them probably a 3-year, $33 to $36 million contract. He is going to be their RB1 if he signs. So if he signs, Tyler, what are your thoughts about his potential fit in the offense, and give the Chargers fans some copium if you can?
Oh, copium. Lovely. I do have some things because I feel while I had to pick a side, I am against it. I can find reasons for it. I think we should start, most importantly, with just no opinions, facts, right? Like, let's actually set the stage for who Najee Harris has been. Right now, his career average is 3.9 yards per carry. His best year is 4.1 yards per carry. Not the best metric for evaluating, but I think these things are kind of important when you're discussing paying someone $12 million a year running back to potentially be like RB5 money. He's touched the football in terms of rushing and receiving almost 1,300 times. Last year, among 31 running backs with at least 150 rushing attempts, Harris was 26th in yards per attempt, 23rd in yards after contact per attempt, and 19th in breakaway rate. And he is 30th out of 47 in rushing yards over expected per attempt. So right now, if the Chargers paid Najee Harris above what Aaron Jones got, which is $10 million per year, so let's say it's 10.001 or it's 12. Let's say it's a $30 million deal, right? 3 years, 30, 3 years, 33, whatever. They would be paying RB5 money to someone who has been, through his career and last year, bottom third in most categories. And I think in mostly important categories. He has been better as a missed tackles force guy. Yeah. So I'll give him credit there. But for the most part, has not been great overall in the per play stats. The 1,000 rushing yards, obviously every season is there. That is the most commonly brought up thing among Chargers fans. To me, that is one of my least favorite arguments. That's just purely a volume. If it takes someone 225 times to get to 1,000 versus 275 to 300 times, you'd prefer the option that takes only about 225. And again, not paying them RB5 money, which is what they're. The good news, if he joins the Chargers, I think this is where things could benefit him. The Steelers, throughout his career, have been more like 2/3 of the time running zone, whereas Greg Roman and these guys are going to run a lot more gap, and potentially, because he was more 50-50 gap, more so leaning gap at Alabama, maybe that suits him more. I don't think Greg Roman's rushing scheme, as we saw last year, is all that great, despite what Ian Rappaport tweeted. It is the best rushing attacks in the league. It was not last year. So highlights were cool, but for the most part, success rate, everything was not great. They lived off the explosives of the player that they may be letting go in favor of Najee Harris. But, okay, sure. You can see where maybe more of a gap scheme can do more for him, picks up a notch or whatever. And that's really the thing. If Najee Harris comes to the Chargers, in a vacuum, I don't like the contract. I don't like the fact that he's going to have that much volume on him, being 27, joining the Chargers, potentially 1 year away from starting to see the decline from a player who's only averaged 3.9 yards per attempt in his career. I don't know that the Chargers are going to get much value out of this because I don't know that the Chargers' current situation is any better. And I think, frankly, it's potentially worse than it was with the Steelers. You can trade out the tackles, but you lose your center. And we'll talk about the additions or the lack of additions so far. The Chargers, if Harris is to get better, he's got to face lighter boxes. Unfortunately, last year for the Chargers, that didn't happen. Gus Edwards faced the most boxes of 8 men or more in the league, ahead of Najee Harris, who was 5th. And J.K. Dobbins was only about 5% behind. So there's not going to be a better avenue there for him. And right now, the Chargers don't have the weapons or the passing attack where people are going to back off. Right now, with the weapons they have, they're the same as last year. So why would they back off? The good news is Najee Harris can do more as a receiver than a Gus Edwards is more of a two-way player. So that's good. So maybe, that helps a little bit. But right now, he's going to face the same number of people in the box, and there's no other weapons right now. Again, scheme, I don't know about Greg Roman. I really struggle with what he did last year, and frankly, the numbers back that up. And the last thing, and I think the most important thing at this point, if you're going to make this right, if you're going to make this work and get any kind of surplus value out of paying someone RB5 money, you've got to beef up the trenches. This guard, the next signing you have to make is the best guard you can find. And you probably should go draft someone in the first 2 rounds at this point. If this is the identity of your team, and it very much so is for Harbaugh, they got to go pay for the trenches. And I don't believe that signing Bradley Bozeman back was the first step in ensuring that was going to work out. So I'm 20% understanding of why Najee Harris would make sense for the Chargers, but there's too much that points in the direction of this is not the best avenue for them.
Yeah, I mean, you covered the situation pretty well there. I think the Chargers, if they do sign him, the main selling point is the consistency. It's the ability to not miss a lot of games. It's the ability to just be enough and consistently get those tough yards. But that's a lot of money to pay for a guy like that. So, I'm kind of conflicted with this because I'm trying to give Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh the benefit of the doubt. They have earned that right. But at the same time, the numbers for Najee Harris are not pretty, and you went over them, and you could definitely make an argument. Sorry. Trying to keep an eye on signings if there's anything that drops. You could definitely make the argument like you did that he was not a scheme fit in Pittsburgh, that he'll be a better scheme fit with the Chargers. And so I'm sure the Chargers will point to all of these things and say, this is a former first-round pick. This is a guy that we really liked recruiting. Like people have pointed out that Jim Harbaugh went to a dance that Najee Harris attended to try and convince him to get to Michigan. All of that stuff is very, very true. But, the numbers are not great. The ability to just make people miss and create explosives is something I really value at the running back position. It's the only reason why the Chargers had a functional running game last year at all in the first place. And that's just not Najee Harris's game. So, we'll have to see what happens. This is definitely a signing that I think would potentially Chase Young back to the Saints. Okay. This is a signing that is like in the Harbaugh identity, but the thing that I can't really reconcile is the amount of carries that this guy has had both in college and in the NFL. So this is a player who's not been super efficient, and he's a season and maybe a half, maybe 2 years before he hits the running back cliff. So you're essentially going to pay this player for his worst seasons, and he hasn't been particularly super efficient at this point anyways. Daniel Jeremiah has pointed this out that the best way to like really get value at the running back position is have your pieces around him great, and then you draft him like highly, and then all of his carries matter. Then he's super cost controlled. All of that stuff is what matters the most. But when you're paying a guy who's already been in the league for 4 years, hasn't been super efficient, played in college for 4 years, had a ton of carries in college, it's just tough for me to really wrap my arms around. And if he has 1,000 yards, like cool, I guess. But it's just like the way that it happens is what matters most to me.
Anything on the news cycle there?
Dan Skipper back to the Lions was the
big one. Okay, that's a really big one of the day. And if you have something in the chat, we can get to any of those signings that the Chargers didn't make. So if you want to have us talk about something, let me know.
Yeah. So
Brian brings up the Saquon Barkley of it all, and everyone's going to bring it up, and the hype channels are going to bring up the Saquon Barkley thing. Steven, you take it.
That's a great amount of copium. The Eagles are not the Chargers from an offensive line standpoint or a scheme standpoint, and Najee Harris is nowhere close to the kind of talent that Saquon Barkley is. Saquon Barkley is one of the best 4 or 5 running back prospects in like the history of the NFL. Before, with a terrible Giants team, he was extremely explosive and carried them to a playoff win, to a playoff season with Daniel Jones as his quarterback. Najee Harris is like fine. Like he's okay. Like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he's like a horrible running back. Like he's solid, but they're going to pay him for great, and he's not great. Like that's the issue here. To me, it's so much easier and smarter to bring back JK on, half the cost, and then go draft somebody like an Omarion Hampton or like a Quinshad Judkins or whoever. And then you can, it's just in a much better situation that way from a financial standpoint. And then you're able to get return on investment. You're still able to get JK's value. If he can, perform great again, awesome. You have that rookie running back chat. All of that stuff it just makes so much more sense than bringing in Najee Harris to me. We're comparing this to Saquon Barkley is incredibly different. The Eagles were great everywhere else, and they were just like, here's a little cherry on top, Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
The Chargers have so many other needs, which we're going to get into here in a second. It's tough. It's really tough for me to reconcile this with all the other needs that have been going on.
Right. Do you feel, I don't know, I guess this is, the Ravens clearly just handed it to a nice contract to Derrick Henry last year, but like A, it was cheaper, and B, it's Derrick Henry, and his seasons are like that's who I think Chargers fans maybe think Najee, or some Chargers fans think Najee is.
I don't even think this is Josh Jacobs, man.
No. I'm sure if we compared the previous seasons and the body of work overall, the ceiling has not been reached. Like even with Saquon, he had almost 2,000 total yards 2 years before, 2 years before he joined the Eagles. Like, what that ceiling is. It was more of an injury thing. Yeah. This is Najee Harris, never missing a game, playing all the time, and just not being great. So again, I'm not going to sit here and say like everyone's kind of like Najee Harris, perfect 1,000 yards, Jim Harbaugh player. The other side's like, no, I don't want Najee Harris. He's blah, blah, blah. I get it. I get why they go after Najee Harris, but it's now up to them if they sign Najee Harris to go make that signing as right as possible.
Yeah. Oh man, we'll see. Again, they can make this work. They absolutely have to go be aggressive at guard. And I'm a big fan of Ted Wynn's work. He was pointing out the Chargers probably taking a guard in the first 2 rounds, like, pencil that in.
Yeah.
If the Chargers can get Will Fries, Tevin Jenkins, Will Hernandez, Mekhi Becton, one of the top guards remaining, although there's been a lot of Seahawks buzz with Will Fries today, apparently. So we'll see what happens there. If the Chargers can go get one of the top guards and you can draft like a Tate Ratledge in round 2, I know that there's going to be a lot of connections between them and Trevor Booker at this point in time, or Tyler Booker.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler?
Yes. Trevor. Tyler? Not Trevor.
Not Trevor. Tyler Booker. There's going to be a lot of connections. Okay. Breaking news from Adam Schefter. Chargers have reached an agreement with Najee Harris on a 1-year deal up to $9.5 million.
Wow. Okay. That is a much better contract than I would have expected. All right. I already feel better about that for sure. So how is it? Up to what?
Up to $9.25 million.
Okay. So that's like our, at best, RB 10-ish money. So that's not as bad for sure. I'm shocked that it's just a 1-year deal for him, but that is significantly better. I definitely feel better about that one for sure.
Yeah. The fact that it's not a 3-year deal is good.
Yes.
That's good.
All the things I just said about his productivity on the field still stand, but the contract is much better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of my bigger concerns was the longevity of this, right? So,
right.
You 1-year contract. I think this probably takes them out of a, top 3 round running back, but you take one in round 4, round 5, and you can kind of see what happens. I'm definitely not like fully on board with this, but
yeah,
the fact that it is not a long-term deal is good. That's a much better signing.
Sorry, let me just change up the thumbnail here.
You're going to change up the thumbnail right now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Chargers sign Najee Harris to a 1-year deal.
Okay, up to 9.25. So that's probably like a $7 million base salary. I would have to guess. All right.
Yeah, no, this is a lot better than the project. It's strange because all the projections for everyone have been way under. So him getting less than expected is awesome.
Him getting less than Aaron Jones is kind of crazy to me, but
yeah.
As Stephen Vaughn points out, this is perfectly acceptable. That's a good way to frame that. Acceptable is nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, we're reacting to it. So if you're wondering what our thoughts are on the Najee Harris signing, basically go back the last 18 minutes and you can go for it like that. But that contract is a lot better. Like I can get behind that a lot more. And again, there are reasons why it works, and I can get behind that contract way more.
Yeah. The Chargers definitely still need to go get some guard help. And actually this should make that easier, I think.
Oh yeah. No, that's pretty good. I don't mind this deal at all. This increases my happiness of this idea by about 32%. Which is almost Jackson's mid tackle rate.
That's good. 30% is good. Yeah, I feel better about it. Chargers just signed JC Jackson. How dare you? How dare you? PTSD for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, people are asking about like other running backs. This is firmly a draft his backup and you see what you get out of Kamani Vidal kind of situation.
Yeah, you're not no Hampton at 22, but
dude, you can't pay a running back $10 million and then draft one at 22. I mean, you can. You shouldn't.
You sure they wouldn't do that?
You shouldn't. Yeah. So again, people asking about like signing another running back. You're not paying a guy up to $10 million ish, and then also signing somebody else. So this is fine. I can live with this if they can go get some other guard options.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's get to kind of a more positive situation here with Khalil Mack coming back. 1 year deal up to $18 million. Not up to, I should say, fully guaranteed $18 million is how that is being reported. This is a much better signing. This is a much better moment. He made our non-negotiables list. I think everybody in here wanted the Chargers to bring him back. So what I was told from multiple people regarding Khalil Mack and his free agency decision, once he decided he was going to play, it was the most likely outcome that he was going to be back for the Chargers. But he did want to kind of hear what other teams had to say, and there were at least 3 other teams that I was told that were interested in Khalil Mack, and one of those teams even offered him a 3-year contract, which is kind of insane and very telling how desperate that particular team is in the NFC East. So there was legit opportunity for Khalil to leave. His numbers from a contract standpoint were in this same kind of range of 16 to $20 million. Again, there's a lot of like incentives and things like that these other teams can potentially offer that the Chargers could have potentially offered. But Khalil Mack believes in Jim Harbaugh. He believes in Justin Herbert. He loves Derwin James. He loves Jesse Minter. He wanted to stay in LA, and he wanted to give this regime another chance to be competitive and win a championship. That is his goal. That is the reason why he is staying here. The only issue was kind of the contract. And once the Chargers came to it with a fully guaranteed contract, which the other teams were not willing to do, that was it. That is what was the final straw, if you will, from a return standpoint. So Khalil Mack is back with the Chargers, $18 million, fully guaranteed. I think it's a really, really solid deal for how much he is going to bring, how much value he is going to bring this team. The fully guaranteed, it is kind of a risky move, right? Given his age, but at the same point, this is what it took to get the deal done. And I'm fully on board with that fact, because if they came into it with $18 million and like $12 million guaranteed, I think he is playing elsewhere. I really do. He wanted to stay, but it had to be the right kind of contract, and the Chargers were willing to do that for him.
Yeah, glad he's back. Was never a doubt for either of us. Yes, there were other suitors. If I had known there was a contract that big, a 3-year contract like that on the table, I would have felt differently. Although you mentioned that, but no, I'm glad he's back. I think a 1-year deal is perfectly awesome for him. We were a little bit worried about what the numbers could be as things started to climb over the course of when we were prepping for free agency versus when we started to really talk about free agency. That climbed and climbed and climbed. But a 1-year deal sounds fine. Doesn't mean that he's gone the following year. He can just keep doing the 1-year thing and coming back to the Chargers if need be, or move on. So it's good for him. It's good for the Chargers. The Chargers could not afford to move on from him. He wants to be back with the Chargers. I think it made perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Joey Bosa situation really had anything to deal with Khalil. I think the Chargers would have moved on from Joey, even if Khalil had decided to leave. I think those two situations were separate from each other. There's a lot of talk that Joey might go to San Francisco. He might go to the Dolphins. So we'll see what happens. It sounds like he also has kind of a decent contract potential out there. But I do think the Chargers would have been prepared with alternative scenarios if Khalil Mack had decided to leave. And like I mentioned, there was legitimate interest in him, but the Chargers were able to get it done. So the one thing I think that people are going to point to is obviously, the age that he's 34 years old. And I think the decline in snaps was really more about the rotation. It was about keeping him fresh. And I think that really is what led to the numbers overall decreasing. So last year he had 52 pressures, 9 sacks, and 8 hits, according to PFF. And there's again, there always has been with Khalil outside of last year. Some washed conversations, washed allegations, and I don't think that is true. This is a guy who still had a very high and respectable pass rush win rate at 14.5. He still defends the run at a very, 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 very high level. He's been the highest graded run defending edge rusher on PFF over the last couple of seasons. And yeah, as Jacob points out, he was injured with 2 groins halfway through the season last year. So I think Khalil will probably end up playing at kind of a like in between 2023 and 2024. I don't think he's 2023 level. Obviously, 2 years, that's a long time ago. But I still think this is a guy who can, if he avoids the injury as he has in the past, this is somebody who could give you, 60 to 65 pressures, 9 to 11 sacks, and still be tremendous against the run and great in the locker room. So again, very worth the cost for me.
Yeah, absolutely worth the cost there. Happy to have him back.
Yeah, very happy to have him back. All right, let's move to Poona Ford. Poona Ford, unfortunately, leaving the Chargers to the Rams. 3 years, $30 million contract. So good for Poona Ford, man. He's kind of bounced around on minimum contracts the last few years. That is a heck of a pay raise. And I think it's very, very well deserving. To me, he's one of the best nose tackles in the league. What went down with Poona Ford is a little bit more nuanced. So the coaches, the defensive coaches, and specifically Mike Elston, were absolutely pounding the table for Poona Ford to get back to the Chargers. Mike Elston and Poona Ford are incredibly close. He loves Poona Ford. This is a guy who they really, really do believe in. But the front office felt like they could potentially replace Poona Ford with a combination of Tier Tart, who did resign, we'll get to him in a second, and a draft pick, because this draft class is absolutely insane. So they also wanted Poona Ford back, but they had a number, and that number was capped. I was told that their final offer to Poona Ford was 3 years, $21 million, so $7 million per year. I think that's a respectable contract offer. But once the defensive tackle contracts really started coming out, and $10 million, is it worth it, right? Like, I think it was worth it, right? Like, we've seen, DJ Jones made $10 million a year with the Broncos. Folorunso Fatukasi made $10 million a year with the Jaguars, things like that. I think Poona Ford was worthy of that kind of contract, but the Chargers front office felt like they couldn't get from $7 million to $10 million per year. They felt like they had a better chance to replace Poona Ford with Tier Tart, potentially another free agent, and a draft pick. So that's kind of what went down with Poona Ford. I do not fault him one bit for going to the Rams for a $30 million contract. It's incredibly hard to pass up that kind of money. And he gets to go play for Gift Smith. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, he gets to go play with an absolutely ridiculous defensive line. I don't remember if the Rams take a step forward, all their players maintain what they're supposed to. That line's going to be insane. One of the best defensive fronts, which is crazy for a team that had Aaron Donald. But across the board, it's got to be the best line they've had. Happy for Poona Ford. When I saw the contract, I was just happy for Poona Ford, and bummed as a Chargers fan. But I understand why they couldn't get to that specific number with this draft class, which is funny because I would have potentially taken the same approach with the running back room with J.K. Dobbins. You bring back Dobbins and draft a player in a good running back class. Same thing like they're bringing back Tart and draft a player, but they're going with Najee Harris, and that's fine. I'm curious if like a Jonathan Allen's on the table here, if they decide to upgrade in a specifically different way from Poona Ford and let Tart do that kind of dirty work thing. There's so many 310-pound nose tackle, defensive tackle types in this class. They can find somebody else. So Tart takes a step forward. You draft a good defensive tackle. You bring in somebody else who's a bit more high-end pass rusher. Like, I think they'll make it work. And if they felt like they could survive without Poona Ford, I don't really blame them because this is the draft class to do that.
Yeah, it is the draft class to do that. And Kenneth Grant, obviously, at pick 22, makes a lot of sense if he's there now. There were actually a good amount of pass rusher defensive tackle types who were released over the last few hours. Obviously, Grady Jarrett was released and then instantly signed right away with the Chicago Bears. But you mentioned Jonathan Allen. Draymond Jones was also released. You have Larry Ogunjobi, who was released. I think Roy Robertson Harris signed somewhere, but there's still a good amount of pass rushing defensive tackles that the Chargers could bring in. I'm not completely opposed to the idea of bringing Morgan Fox back, but like at some point they got to get some defensive tackle pass rusher that kind of fits more of their size profiles, I think. So if you can do that, if Justin Eboigbe can take any kind of step forward, again, maybe Otito Bonia takes another step forward, the Chargers can certainly make this position room a strength. They could also, go sign another like run stuffing defensive tackle. Folorunso Fatukasi is available. The Browns released Dalvin Tomlinson today. He probably costs a little bit too much, but him and Poona Ford were like identical from a number standpoint, size standpoint. So you could go get another run stuffer, and then you could draft like a Derek Harmon at 22 or a TJ Sanders through a trade back or something like that. Aeneas Peebles in the second round, stuff like that. This defensive tackle class just gives you so many options, so much flexibility, and kind of pivoting to Tier Tart here, because Tier Tart is back and he can play the nose, he can play the 3-tech, he can move all around. He does give you a little bit of pass rush juice. He does give you a little bit more playmaking from a tackles for loss standpoint. The Chargers, although I'm going to miss Poona Ford, one of the most fun players to watch on tape in Chargers history for me, I'm going to miss watching him. I think the Chargers can still make this defensive tackle room a strength and still improve it from where they were at last year. They're just going to have to be a little bit more creative now that Poona Ford is gone. But wish him nothing but the best. You sign a guy for the minimum contract and he turns that into a $10 million per year contract. Like that's pretty damn good. Like that's why you take reclamation projects. This is why this should be part of the philosophy. So this guy can go and reward himself and reward the team. So excited and happy for Poona Ford, but I'm going to miss watching him for sure.
Yeah. And it's been pretty good for Chargers players signed as kind of reclamation projects or traded for as reclamation projects. We'll see with Christian Fulton, obviously, but Molden getting $18.5 million, Ford $30 million. It's fun playing for Jesse Minter's defense. If you need a resurrection to your career, come sign over here.
Yeah. Jackson. I mean, Tier Tart gets a nice raise as well. He goes from, again, the minimum contract to $5 million, up to $5 million, I think. And the next rumored contract here is Mr. Donte Jackson, the cornerback from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So former Pittsburgh Steelers to the Chargers, I guess, is happening today. So the Donte Jackson contract, it's a little conflicting for me as well. The numbers are not great. He did have 5 interceptions last year. He is definitely more of a zone cornerback than a man coverage cornerback. He's fast and he is taller. So the Chargers, I guess, could get some kind of upgrade there. But right now, paying $6.5 million for Donte Jackson when you probably just could have brought Christian Fulton back for cheaper is stuff that I'm not crazy about. But you mentioned Jesse Minter. If Jesse Minter sees something here, I'm going to trust him and I'm going to figure that he is going to be able to get the most out of Mr. Donte Jackson.
I completely agree. One of my non-negotiables, it was actually the last slide and we didn't get to it because we were over an hour at that point, but was sign a veteran corner, and they signed a veteran corner. So I got my wish. I didn't specify like, does it have to be an early guy, high paid guy, whatever. I just wanted them to get a veteran in that room because they can be patient in the draft. It's not a great class, but at each point, let's say Barron falls or Porter falls to you, or you want to take one of the Kansas corners or whatever, you can do that. You got some flexibility to make that work, and you can move these pieces around. Again, I'm not, as you said, I'm not doubting Jesse Minter at this point. I did that last year, not doing that again, which means I'll be wrong again somehow. The one thing that is obvious and glaring is the missed tackle rate, because if Asante Samuel Jr. couldn't really get back onto the field, I suppose, allegedly, given that he said there was a stinger and that was more of an injury thing, but I don't know. If your missed tackle rate is worse than Asante Samuel Jr.'s, that's a bit problematic. And whatever you can say about Christian Fulton's, coverage in the second half of the season, injury, post-injury, he tackled. Like, he went up and hit. He tried to hit. He tried to make plays. He was aggressive downhill. I can't pretend that I've watched a lot of Jackson to this point, other than the one time he played the Chargers, but he's not exactly much of a great tackler, and I'll have to do more research on his ability in coverage. The numbers are fine. It's a good, I think, veteran signing, but I don't know just yet.
Yeah, that's the thing here. So on paper, this doesn't seem like a great contract. I'm not super stoked about paying that kind of money. Like I also wanted them to sign a veteran corner. I think it makes too much sense for them to do that and have that flexibility. But this player wasn't really somebody that was on my radar because of that missed tackle percentage. I think like the whole reason why they brought in Christian Fulton, like the main selling point was he's going to defend the run and he's going to tackle and he's going to be physical, both in press, both in pass coverage. So that is not really the case with what you're getting from Donte Jackson.
Yeah. Did Zont sign with the Jets?
Not that I see.
Did I say something on accident? I have no idea. Sorry, someone said that in the chat, and that's somewhat related to us, but no, I don't see anything. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I don't think he's signed yet.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what they do the rest of the way. If this were last year before the season, I'd say not a huge fan. Am I a huge fan right now? Not really, but I trust Minter.
Yeah, for sure. Sonny Sammy Jr. has not signed, although there are some rumors that the Bills are interested.
Cool.
Jameis Winston, did that just happen?
Someone said, I forget who said that Jameis was talking to the Chargers and somebody else, but
Josina Anderson said that. That was a little bit ago.
Yeah. And it was part of the reason we did the offseason simulations because we included like Heineke returning to the Chargers, which is potentially, $5 to $10 million that a lot of Chargers fans don't think about. We have $90 million in cap space. All right, who's the backup quarterback? How much are you paying them? And if it's Winston, it's not going to be cheap. So there's a good chunk that's going to come out of their cap this year. But I don't see anything new.
No, I don't see anything new. For what it's worth, the Chargers had 2 potential compensatory picks on the board for Poona Ford and Joshua Palmer. Those 2 picks have now gone off the board because of Donte Jackson and Najee Harris, according to Nick Cordy from Over the Cap.
Yeah, I didn't expect this year to be much of a comp pick for next year.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice.
Yeah, but backup quarterback I think is definitely a need. Again, we talked about this. They need somebody who can hold the fort in training camp and in the preseason. Jameis Winston, I don't know, man. He kind of fits the whole like backup quarterback vibe they kind of going for. Just be like Taylor Heineke is kind of a goofball. He has some strong opinions, and Jameis Winston's kind of a goofball, has some strong opinions. The Chargers could recreate the video between Jameis and Jim Harbaugh for the heck of it. It'd be kind of funny. So I'm fine with it. He's a backup quarterback, who can potentially start in a pinch. I think that's really what you're looking for. I am curious about his market because his market does have, kind of like upwards of $6 million per year kind of deal.
What's the deal? Does PFF even have quarterback projections?
Not backup quarterbacks, no.
Okay. Russ, Winston, Brissett, Mariota, Mack. Yeah, bummer. Huh. Okay.
Andre Cisco to the Jets.
Cool.
Good for them.
How about it, Arjun?
Byron Murphy back to the Vikings.
Okay.
That one makes sense. And Kyle Juszczyk has been informed that he is being released. So he is a former Raven for what it's worth.
Yeah. Geez. How do I even feel about that? When Kyle Juszczyk becomes available, I couldn't tell you much about him at this point. Like in his career, I know all pros he's had, but I don't know where he's currently at in his career.
I mean, he was still fairly good from last year. I think the Chargers are very invested into the Scott Matlock fullback experience, and even if they were not, which Scott Mallock's defensive tackle tape is not very good. It is not very good. So you can, I think you can settle him in at fullback, and I think the Chargers are a-okay with that.
Yeah. We've got 1,300 people in here and 23 super chats. Do you want to try to get to those after a word from our sponsor?
Yes, afterward from our sponsor. Great call. I have to tell you guys about our friends over at PrizePicks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. NBA season in full swing. March Madness is right around the corner. I've already committed to like 7 different bracket groups and PrizePicks each game or each day. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be constantly checking my phone that day. So it should be a great time. PrizePicks is genuinely super user friendly. It's very, easy to use. You just have to pick a player more or less on a stat. I've mentioned this before, but the rebound section on the NBA picks is basically free money. And I would definitely encourage you guys to go check that out. So prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout is the best and easiest way to do that. Supporting PrizePicks does support our own show on the Guilty as Charged podcast. So we do really appreciate it. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty. Do you want to talk about Bradley Bozeman?
Told you so. I don't know. Now I
did try to warn you guys that they were going to bring him back.
We tried. I tried the Ryan Kelly thing, guys. It really did, but all roads did point back to Bozeman. I expected him to be back. I didn't expect to hear multi-year deal, which
multi-year deal is crazy.
Yeah, and he's not like a young. It is like a multi-year deal with Andre James or something. As somebody a bit younger, I would get it. Multi-year deal. I guess we'll see what that means. But it was expected to happen. I'm not super thrilled, given we're trying to make the Najee Harris thing work here, and I don't think Bozeman was all that great. I mean, they were not a good rushing attack last year.
No. And
a lot of that was because of the offensive line. A lot of it specifically Bozeman in the interior. So not a huge fan. The multi-year deal aspect is eye-opening. With that said, you could if it's a 2-year deal, you can cut him after this year, I'm sure.
Yeah. But him being on a multi-year extension to me says that he is the starting center. So all of that talk from the combine that they're going to move Zion to center or whatever.
Yep. I forgot about that.
Not basically anytime the Chargers are going to talk about moving a guard to center, I'm just not going to believe it because they said the same thing about Jordan McFadden. Not Jordan McFadden. Yeah, Jordan McFadden. And then did that with Zion Johnson. So I expect Bradley Bozeman to be the starting center going forward. The Chargers, I think, should have 2 new starting guards, but we'll see what they end up deciding to do with Zion and Trey Pipkins. So
yeah,
the three interior guys, if I would have had to guess who would be most likely back as a starter, it would have been probably Bradley Bozeman, but I think he was probably the worst of the 3.
Given that they have not released Trey Pipkins yet, how what's your % chance this is the starting 5 next year, or at least heading into the draft?
Oh, I think less than 10%. Heading into the draft, maybe. But I think the thing with Trey is that they probably want to wait and see what they're doing with swing tackle. This is also a horrible year to need offensive tackle. So maybe they could wait and see if somebody gets desperate and trade him. But I don't think Trey is actually going to be starting for this team. Zion, I think, has a chance.
Yeah.
And Bozeman will be a starter.
Yeah. I genuinely did not think that they would. I don't know. They haven't spent enough, so clearly they can just go get 2 new guards if they wanted.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I really do not know. But I am ultimately, and it's a bummer to say, not thrilled with Bozeman returning, although I completely get it.
Yeah, we expected it, but I also am not thrilled. Okay, before we get to these super chats, just real quickly wanted to share the depth chart updates here. So I have the players who are returning in blue, and then the free agents that are going to be in yellow. Defense up here first. So again, technically speaking, they could start Otito Ogbonnia right now. They started him for the bulk of the season last year. alongside Tier Tart. But they do need to get a pass rushing defensive end. Linebacker depth, not great. And then they do need a fourth safety at some point. Although I do kind of expect that to be some kind of draft pick. And Tony Jefferson probably is going to come back as well.
Yeah, that's somewhere down the line. Could be literally the day before the season starts. I think Tony Jefferson will be back.
Yeah.
I'm glad you started with the defensive group because one, I trust Jesse Minter, and two, they'll get their way to making this work, and the draft is awesome. Show me the offense.
Show you the offense. Okay. So the offense, obviously you have Justin Herbert and no other quarterback, which happy birthday, Justin Herbert, by the way.
Happy birthday, Justin Herbert.
Not a great birthday present from the Chargers today, but it is what it is. I forgot to put Najee Harris in here. Excuse me. Let me get the right one up here. Just because I'm
live TV, guys. Live TV. And we're back.
Nope. This one also did not have Najee Harris.
You have to take it off. Wait, you have to remove. Wait, there you go. Remove it. And then, I don't know, just everyone take a Sharpie and draw it on your phone where Najee Harris should be.
I swear I downloaded the one with Najee Harris up on here.
That's okay. Excel Sheets doesn't want Najee Harris to sign with.
Anyways, there you go. We can put it up here. That's still defense. This is so funny. This is so classic. I'm just going to put the one up without Najee. That's okay.
Okay. Everyone use your imagination.
Okay. Use your imagination that Najee Harris is there. They obviously released Gus Edwards. So Gus Edwards is not on the team anymore. They currently do not have any pass catching tight ends. So that's a thing. I'm surprised they didn't tender Stone Smart since they tendered they tendered Tucker Fisk. They did not tender Stone Smart. So I believe Stone Smart. Well, I guess they still technically have until Wednesday to do that. So they could still bring back Stone Smart. They do not have an X receiver. They do not have a backup wide receiver that I trust even remotely at any point. Mm-hmm. And then offensive line, you have obviously the same starters from last year and Jamari Sawyer.
Now to you, Tyler. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. It's not a very good group, guys. If Justin Herbert was, now you can say this many years, but I think more so right now. And granted, they have a lot of time and money and picks. As I'm staring at this roster right now, I almost want to take the season off. I'm just going to go make a baby with my wife and not watch this season. Like, I do not want to see this offense in its current form out there. It's a bad group. And thank God they have Rashawn Slater, who hopefully gets his extension, and Joe Alt, because no X, no receiving tight end, no other receiving. I know Will Dissly had a fine season. It was great vibes, but we got to get a receiving tight end. Oh, man, this is a rough group, man. And we knew that. They've got a lot of time, a lot of picks, a lot of money. But right now, this is a rough group.
Yeah, I know you guys talked about receiver a lot last night. I understand why this specific regime would not be in on Devontae Adams given his age, and I definitely understand why this regime would not trade a second round pick and pay DK Metcalf a 5-year, $150 million contract. I get that, and they could still technically go sign somebody to play wide receiver, but like at some point you gotta find some receivers. Like you need people to catch the ball other than Ladd McConkey. So I would have thought, okay, if you're not going to pay the top guys, Darius Slayton makes a lot of sense. You can go get somebody, of that level that can stretch the field at least. Heck, you could have signed Mack Hollins for $8 million and he's not even on the table either. So it's just, I'm not surprised they did not pay a top receiver, but I am surprised that they have done nothing at the position because they know they need help. Like they tried to trade for a receiver last year. They tried to claim that receiver on waivers. They tried to sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling last year. They know they need help, but they're not showing it. So I don't know. Like when you look at the Ravens contracts and how they handled wide receivers, it's a lot of draft picks and, a Nelson Aguilar type, a Steve Smith type, like a solid veteran, presence who can kind of round out the room. Those players are all kind of gone. Those players are not available right now. So it's definitely surprising and frustrating that this team does not potentially value receiver even like a little bit in free agency this year.
Yeah. TBD, we're hanging on to desperation for like one or two more options. Yeah, Josh Palmer is gone. Congrats to Josh Palmer.
Yeah, congrats.
And frankly, dude, who's your agent, man? I need to negotiate.
Great.
I got like negotiate with the district, get my salary up in the district somehow, move me up a few steps. Because good Lord, that $36 million is not what I expected Palmer to get. So congrats to him, man. As far as weapons go, you are down to, drum roll, please, everybody. Okay, so Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs after an ACL injury, Wash DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan, Deontay, cut 42 times last year, the ghost of Mike Williams, Elijah Moore, Tyler's favorite from 5 years ago.
Dude, that rookie season was fun, but that was in like 2020.
Yeah, that was a ways, man. It feels very Cooper and has felt like that for a bit.
Sure.
But just I don't know. I watched enough of that game in Houston, being there, looking at the field, sitting in that, to know they need to do more at receiver than just go get a guy on day 2.
Yeah.
And I know they're not a player away. Most teams aren't, but they got to get closer to being that. And I think I would love for again, we have plenty of time to go. So I'm not saying this is over. It's not. But they got to add somebody so we can get to that place of being close enough. And I don't want them to have to take, I like Golden. I like Igbuka, but like I don't need them to have to take a receiver at 22. But I don't know. They might have to. At this point, that might be my priority because, well, they signed a corner. Bozeman's your starter. Let's see what happens at guard. Like, it just might be that for them.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, Matthew Golden or Colston Loveland would be the choices at 22, potentially.
Yeah.
Again, like I felt like heading into the season, there was enough connections between the Chargers and Darius Slayton. He only went for $12 million per year, which is, to me, like that's right his kind of value. That's right exactly the kind of contract you want. And if you could head into the next season with, Ladd taking another step, Quentin takes another step, you have Darius Slayton as your vertical threat, and then you go draft a Jaden Higgins and Elik Iominor in the draft, Jack Besh, an X receiver, one of these big X receivers, because the second round is the sweet spot for receiver this year. It really is. Like I think Matthew Golden is fine, but I have a tough time justifying that value right now personally. Mm-hmm. So if that was the room, I'd feel pretty good about it, and I think you can seriously talk yourself into it. But I know everybody wants to do the Keenan thing. I get it. I really do. And I'm not trying to be a Keenan hater, but I just think him and Ladd are it's just not a good fit. It doesn't help the room the way that this room needs to be helped with how they want to play this offense. They need a vertical stretch player, boundary X receiver, and that's not Keenan's game. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. I don't think that really helps the offense. Like, does it help the room? Yes, 100%. They are good players, right? But the way that this team wants to play offense, they need verticality first and foremost, and those two guys are not that. Stephon Diggs, like, I understand, like, that's where we're at. He is the least Harbaugh receiver of any possible wide receiver you could ever imagine. He actively hates blocking. He hates every team he is on for more than 2 years. He's older, coming off of an ACL tear. That's just not happening. So your point about Amari Cooper, if that's the choice, fine. I think you're taking a bet on getting him potentially back to 2023, and I would understand that. But Amari Cooper is definitely risky. He is an older guy. Last season, the numbers are not pretty. So it is a risk for sure.
Yeah, and all of this is a risk. Again, circling back to, unfortunately, the offensive coordinator. and the line, but I just have a harder time buying into these guys. If you make some of these similar moves and your play caller is Sean McVay or Andy Reid or whatever, you're like, well, okay, well, let's see what happens here. Greg Roman is like, I guess like here comes 800 yards, for 15 million a year. Like, yay.
Yeah. So everyone, like the Devontae thing, I know they were interested, but if you're Devontae Adams, like Sean McVay, Greg Roman, the Rams were a few yards away from the NFC Championship game. The Chargers, like, if you're Donte Adams, if the Rams are in, that was an easy choice for him from day one.
Yeah, definitely. So I ask this horrendous question every time, and it feels even funnier every time I ask it. Do you think the Chargers believe in Quentin Johnson to be their wide receiver 2 this year?
I do. At minimum, I think they would think he is like their 2B.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know, I get it, chat. Like I get it. You saw the way that Harbaugh went to bat for him and for his guys. And look, Bradley Bozeman's back on a multi-year deal. And they went to bat for Quentin, man.
That's still crazy to say out loud.
Very, very crazy to say out loud. But yeah, especially if you're handing it to Najee Harris 300 times next year, which can happen.
Sure.
I don't know, man.
All right, let's get to some of these super chats for 57 minutes. And we have 27 super chats. Sorry, guys. Alex in here first says, what are we saving money for at this point? Because it feels like we could have offered Poona the same contract he got from the Rams. We touched on Poona a little bit. What are they saving money for at this point? The guard market is still available. They still have some options there. The tight end market is like free agency wise. It's pretty much just Juwan Johnson and Evan Ingram. I'm kind of out on Evan Ingram personally. I don't think he is at all relevant in this kind of offense. Juwan Johnson makes a ton of sense. There's also been some buzz about Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert getting cut and or traded. So potentially the tight end group should increase quite a bit over the next 48 hours. So offensive line and tight end, I think, is where we should see the Chargers spend some money tomorrow and on Wednesday. And then backup quarterback, we mentioned at some point you would think they sign a receiver. But I think they're doing a lot of due diligence on the guard market. I expected them to sign somebody today, and they still could. But guard and tight end, I think, is where they could potentially spend some money over the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I think I agree there. I also don't think corner's out of the question.
Another corner?
I think it's completely out of the question, yeah.
Okay. Leia Smith in here says that she was here to listen to the voices of reason. Hopefully you skipped all the Najee Harris stuff then, and not her panic thoughts.
Yes, we are here to provide all the, I don't know. At least it's not your panic thoughts. It's potentially our panic thoughts.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think there was panic. A lot of like anti-Joe Ortiz, anti-Harbaugh stuff.
Yeah.
You agree with some things, you disagree with some things. Most moves aren't all good or all bad. There's just, I prefer some are others, whatever. Everybody just relax.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this regime has earned a lot of benefit of the doubt. So if they think that Najee Harris has a gear that he has not shown, I'm going to question it, but I will trust that it could work out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And again, a contract feels good.
Yeah. Jamook says everything is okay. We re-signed J.K. Scott. The Chargers did re-sign J.K. Scott to another multi-year contract. I think it was, what was it, $3 million a year?
Oh, I didn't see the compensation, honestly. To me, I get it. Everyone's like, yeah, upgrade from J.K. Scott. And I talked about it as much, like, what's the thing they could do? Upgrade from punter? Yeah, great. Who? I don't know. So,
yeah. 2-year deals, 2 years, $6 million.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
So it's generally J.K. Scott, the punter, hasn't necessarily been the best, but the overall special teams operation has been very strong with him in it. And a part of it being him, of course, as a holder, as the hang time punter. So as long as we don't get a weird special teams gaff like the Houston game, like I'm gonna trust.
Yeah, same. Alex sent in a Najee mental health relief fund. Again, I think the 1-year contract makes me feel a lot better about it.
Way better. Way better. Again, a 32% happiness increase.
Why 32?
I don't know. It's just the first number that came to mind.
Oh, I just realized Najee's going to have to change numbers. Or I guess Elijah Molden could change numbers.
Elijah Molden's got the big contract, man. Get out of here.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's like super attached to 22. It's just kind of like the number that he, or is he? I don't know. Was he 22 at Tennessee? No.
I don't remember.
He was 24 at Tennessee, 22 with the Chargers. What was his?
I need Molden to take that number 22 and keep turning it into a number I associate with good defensive back performances.
Elijah Molden's dad was 25. That kind of sucks that he doesn't get to wear 25. Let's make Junior Colson change numbers.
Yeah.
25 is a lame number for a linebacker anyways.
Yeah, that will change everything. Give him 9. That'll work.
Even worse.
Zero work.
Zero work. Yeah, 0 works. Cash Cap says, please talk me off a ledge with positive outlook. You still have Justin Herbert.
Still got Justin Herbert, baby. Those jerseys are sick.
Yeah. Teresa Compapa says, happy birthday, Herbert. This has been an uneventful start to free agency, but I'm going to continue to trust in Harbaugh and Ortiz.
Yes.
Yes. Also, while we're at it, there is an H in front of Joe Ortiz's name. It is not Joe Ortiz with an O. There is an H in front of it. Please put an H in front of his name.
Yes. You can have the H back when you sign a receiver and a guard. I'm going to hold on to that one for you.
Fair. GOC, new member. Appreciate it. Hopefully check out the Discord link for you. Athir says, I have solution to our wide receiver. Sign Amari Cooper. Trade 2nd and 5th rounder for Jalen Waddle. Draft Colston Loveland round 1. Take running back round 3. Is this too much? Your thoughts?
It's not enough for Waddle, but
yeah,
sure. If they want to sign Amari Cooper, draft Loveland, and then take a running back in round 3, yeah, they could do that.
Yeah, Waddle's not a disgruntled player who has requested a trade, so you'd have to give up a 1st-round pick for him.
Yeah.
Crescendo says that he's crashing out. Yes, long offseason to go, but what is ATP?
At this point?
At this point? Okay.
It's adenosine triphosphate. Sorry. There you go, nerds.
Nice. Looks like long rebuild route. That's crazy for a team that only fell 2 steps away. Looking forward to lying about being a contender all season.
I mean, they got their teeth kicked in Houston. They weren't even 2 steps away, in my opinion, unless you mean playoff game, I suppose. But
yeah,
I don't know. Again, I need to see the end result of this because there are potentially 10 drafted players and another 8 signed meaningful players to go. And that can make a huge difference.
Yeah. I think we could all feel very different about this in the next couple of days, that's how being a fan works, right? But hypothetically speaking, if they sign Amari Cooper, Will Fries, and Jonathan Allen, then I think we're back.
Yeah. So, totally.
Those are all things that I think could be on the table, and you could add in Juwan Johnson as well. So, I understand why we and other people are frustrated, but there is a long way to go. CJH says, so Amari and Hampton is no longer a reality. I think the board would have to go like very poorly for them in order to get to Amari and Hampton, because at the end of the day, Joe Ortiz is still a best player available GM. I truly believe that. So if like Colston Loveland, Kenneth Grant, the pass rushers, are all off the board, and Amari Hampton is like truly the best player, is truly the best player available, I think they would take him at that point.
Yeah.
But I think the board would have to go a very certain way. I think as long as there are other options who can, rush the passer, catch passes on the board, I think they would go in those directions.
Yeah, I agree.
1 year only. Let me cook, boys, says Chef Ortiz.
Give him time, guys. Give him time. Again, Christian Fulton, what? Molden. Okay, I liked Molden. Poona Ford, huh?
Yeah.
Granted, all those things I mentioned are on the defensive side of the football. That's the thing. I don't know how often it's going to work, man.
Right. At least the Chargers did not give a 3-year, $45 million contract to Javon Kinlaw.
Wow. Did I advocate for Kinlaw last year? Once?
Yeah, but that's when he was costing like, not 45.
See, guys? 45.
Good for him, I guess. Wow. That's crazy. Or the Green Bay Packers gave $77 million to Aaron Banks, guys. Like,
there's some huge lineman deals going around, man. Oh, but the Texans are like, we don't need Tunsil.
Dude, that's crazy to me.
That is crazy to me. I watched the tackles get dog walked in the postseason by the Chargers.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's fine. We'll find another one. Okay.
That's like the worst year to need a left tackle in ages. And they're like, we'll trade a top 5 tackle in the AFC away for pennies.
Yeah, that's fine. They're one like good player for the last like 8 years, but sure.
Yeah. Good for the Commanders though. They're making a lot of trades, spending a lot of money. Blake says, asked this before, but after the moves, how do y'all feel about beefing the line through draft/free agency, late receiver draft pick, or Slayton and bringing Keenan back? Darius Slayton did sign with the Giants again.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me. Like they didn't want him last offseason. They fielded trade offers for him all year long, decided to keep him. It's weird. I do not understand that whole cycle between those two, but Darius Slayton is no longer on the table. What are your thoughts about Blake's question here?
Please beef up the entire offensive line. Like go ham, go crazy, do whatever you got to do, make it right. Like Najee Harris is going to work, go make it work.
Yeah, have to. Blake was back with the second one, said could also get Scadaboo later in the draft. No 40 time, but he's not a 40 time player. Like he's a bowling ball kind of player. I think he is a lot of fun and offers a lot of versatility as a pass catcher and as a thrower. My man can drop some dots every now and then as a secondary passer if you want. But I think so. You have Najee Harris and you have Hassan Haskins on the roster. I think those two guys are kind of your bigger bruisers. I think they need to replace the speed and versatility that JK brings. So I think that's, Travion Henderson in the second round, Devin Neal in the third round, DJ Giddens in the third round.
Giddens would be a good one.
That kind of RJ Harvey's pretty fast, right?
I think he ran like a 4.4 something. More twitch than fast.
Yeah, he's definitely more twitch than fast.
Oh yeah, Bashal Tootin. Yeah, from Virginia Tech. Good call there. Hello, Jake.
No, thank you.
Really? Okay. Oh, he's more like a round 5 guy, but yeah.
He has 8 fumbles in his career over the last 2 years. That is a big concern for me. But he is very fast. Credit to him for being fast.
Yes. I don't know. I'll balance it out. Najee's got, 6 in his career? I know he had 0 as a rookie, and that was like some big deal. But just average it out.
Average it out. There you go. That's another thing. J.K. Dobbins, 0 fumbles last year. Burbonsky, I'm going to guess that's how you say that. He wants to know how's Najee Harris as a pass catcher. So he did have 324 yards receiving last year. 8.3 yards per reception. It's pretty good for a running back, actually.
Will Roman remember that you can throw to him?
1.39 yards per route run. The answer to that question is no. Wow, he had 466 yards receiving as a rookie. I did not realize that.
That carried my fantasy team to 9th place.
Yeah, he's not a route runner guy, but he'll catch screens. He can definitely catch screens.
Yeah.
The issue is that Tyler mentioned that Greg Roman doesn't know that screens are an option to throw to running backs.
What was the number to Dobbins last year?
It was like 8 receptions all year long. So stupid.
Man. Yeah.
Why make things easier on your offensive line when you can just throw the ball deep every single time?
Sure. To Quentin.
Who needs screens?
Yeah.
Is that Iman Elman? I'm assuming Iman.
Sure.
He wants to know, is trading for T. Higgins still an option? They signed Mike Gesicki and the other edge, and T still hasn't signed his tag, if I'm not mistaken. He has not signed his tag. He has until Wednesday, I believe, to do that.
I don't know what the Bengals' plan is. Like, we'll just bring back all our guys. Cool. What about the receivers?
Yeah. They are a wild team, man. Like, you don't sign players early. Like, this is what happens. Like, this is you and the Dallas Cowboys. You're now looking at over $40 million for Jamar Chase, which is so funny. When I said that a few weeks ago on the show, like, Jamar Chase, $40 million, no way. Yeah, that's happening. You're gonna look at Micah Parsons over $40 million per year, Jamar Chase over $40 million per year. This non-quarterback market is gonna go crazy a little bit. Yeah. So I think it's not off the table. I think the Bengals are very dug in where they are going to keep T. Higgins on at least the franchise tag and make him sit out if it comes to that. Nature's Calls podcast, our guy, says that he's okay with that Najee contract, doesn't prohibit us from upgrading the draft, and solid possible 1-2 punch options.
Yeah. No, it definitely doesn't. I'm glad it's not a long-term, heavy, expensive commitment to Najee Harris. Like, if you told me the Chargers were in play for a 1-year deal up to 9 point whatever million, we would have started this podcast a little different.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, day 2, day 3 picks. I don't think day 1 is an option anymore.
Yeah.
Nitzer666 says, if this offense doesn't take the necessary strides this season, could you see them parting ways with Roman at season's end?
I think it depends on what resources are given to him. Because if it's just Najee Harris and everybody else again, I at some point have to.
What do you expect from him? Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. We'll see. Because right now there's no transformative element brought in. Najee Harris will be like solid, but there's just, I don't think, an 1,800-yard rusher here.
Yeah. This is not a situation where you are like giving him, a ton to work with right now. So I think if the Chargers don't make the playoffs and the offense is worse, I think that is on the table, but it has to be both. If the offense is better and they don't make the playoffs by like a game because the defense is worse, then I think Greg Roman sticks around. But if they don't make the playoffs and the offense is worse, I think that is on the table. But at the same time, Jim Harbaugh has hired Greg Roman at 4 different stops of his coaching career. They are very, very close. I think it would have to take a significant decline in offense for Greg Roman to get fired.
Yeah, I almost feel as if there will be a scapegoat like Devlin firing.
Yeah,
at that particular point.
Yeah,
which actually would kind of make more sense. Yeah,
because there's no direct ties between Jim and Devlin, right? Like Greg is the tie there,
and technically not Hardwick.
Yeah,
and the rest. So
Devlin, Marcus Brady. Yeah, I think they would move on from them first before Greg Roman. Chances they go wide receiver round 1. Would you prefer Egbuka, Burden, Golden? I think it has increased, but I still like if Colston Loveland is there, they're taking him over a receiver. I can guarantee that. I think they would take Kenneth Grant over these receivers. I think they would take probably Tyler Booker over these receivers. But I think it has definitely increased. I think of the 3, I prefer Egbuka. And I think in this offense, I would also prefer Egbuka.
Yeah.
Because I think he can play outside more than he showed at college.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. Oh, God, someone posted a Chargers offensive threats picture, and it's just, jeez, dude.
Why are we doing that? It's not even, he's not even over.
Disley, Quentin. It's like,
it's really bad. Really bad. Only God can judge me. Says, what about trading for Tyreek Hill and signing Mike Williams, then sign Mekhi Becton the guard? Tyreek's not going anywhere. Like, that contract is so untradeable. Like, I understand, this is where we're at with the receiver position. But the Dolphins would take on a dead cap hit of like $40 million this year if they traded Tyreek Hill. And then there's also the whole like he's a piece of shit human being, and the Chargers don't really do that thing. So no, thank you.
Yeah, I don't all that like just if they didn't sign for trade for Metcalf, granted there's a big extension there. Like I don't think they're.
Yeah, but I think if somebody did trade for Tyreek Hill, I think you would have to also do a new contract.
Yeah, I don't even know where he's at, but no, thank you.
Mekhi Becton, I am very intrigued by that signing.
Mm-hmm.
Chad Alexander got to see everything that went poorly with Mekhi Becton in New York for 4 years. I kind of have a hard time seeing that Chad Alexander would sign off on this, but yeah, stylistically, definitely a fit. Physicality, size profile, he can play tackle for you in a pinch. I think it makes sense on paper. If Chad Alexander were not on the Chargers, maybe they would be more into it, and they still might be. Yeah, but I have a hard time envisioning Chad Alexander signing off on that potential signing.
I don't think you should go out and get not that Becton's an experiment, but he had one okay year where his career turned around with Jeff Stoutland. I think if Bozeman's your center and if Zion seems to be your left guard now, like right now he is your left guard, I don't really want an experiment option at right guard. I want you to go find someone who can play right now.
Yeah, Becton next to a Ryan Kelly would have been fun. I think that would have worked.
Sure.
But you got to have some stability around him that makes his job easier, I think, too.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Alexander says that he's so down with our day today in free agency, not being stupid with money and getting jersey sales over a deep roster, which is what we really need. Bolt up.
Not getting.
Oh, so down as in like he likes it. I think is how.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Good for you, Joe Alexander. I think it's fine. Like to me, it's a big triumphant. Like meh. Like all right, cool. That was Monday.
It's fine. It's not going to tank the team like some people are saying, but it's
right.
With $90 million, you would expect the Chargers to be making a little bit more improvement in free agency. Right. Sorry, I see a question about Evan Ingram in the chat coming up, so I'm just searching.
Yeah.
This is from your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man says Evan Ingram is visiting the Chargers tomorrow, I think. I just searched on Twitter, couldn't find anything. He is visiting the Broncos today. I hope that they sign him. And then the Chargers can sign Juwan Johnson.
I don't know, especially with Najee. Granted, not that Hayden Hurst was throwing blocks all the time, but this is a 30% of the time blocker. I don't see that one. I think he blocked 29% of the time this past year.
Yeah, 30% blocker, and I think like 30% of his targets were on passes that went less than 2 yards ahead of the line of scrimmage. So this is a guy who caught I think I looked it up in 2023. He caught 28 screen passes, and then also caught like a shit ton of mesh concepts. So he can be a really good player for you if you can design him those targets. The problem is that the Chargers have Greg Roman, and he does not know that screens exist, as we previously discussed. So I think Evan Ingram signing for the Broncos makes a lot more sense than it does for the Chargers. I think Juwan Johnson makes a ton of sense because he is a vertical tight end. Like he will get down the seam, and he knows how to separate vertically. Of the free agent target tight end options available, Evan Ingram would be my top choice. If Mark Andrews and Dallas Goedert become available, that obviously changes. But I'm not particularly interested in Evan Ingram personally.
Yeah, loved even just watching Juwan Johnson versus the Chargers and getting around Derwin James and catching 3 different passes vertically, especially that last one. Yeah, that's a really good element they could use.
Yeah. Blake says that JH Justin Herbert makes bad receivers look good. I think this is part of how they look at wide receiver, where they do trust Justin to elevate wide receivers. I mean, there were some good Jalen Reagor moments, for example. He obviously elevated Will Dissly to new heights. So some of that is true. But again, the Chargers still should give him more resources. He shouldn't be asked to do this every single year.
Right. And they shouldn't be giving him below average to slightly below average. All right, we're going to elevate him to what? Like just below average?
Yeah. Taylor said Najee signed for a 1-year deal. He did. Thank you for the super chat to reiterate the news there. Nicholas Petrilli says Ortiz did more with negative cap than 90 million. We don't know just quite yet, but that's very funny, and I really appreciate that.
Make me laugh. Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Oh, man.
Blake says, unpopular opinion, Asante is one of his favorite Chargers. I think there's a lot of positive feelings about Asante. I think it, unfortunately, just doesn't work in this particular scheme, and he got injured.
Yeah. No, but as a individual, yeah, he's awesome. Respected him. Liked him come out of the draft. So, yeah, no, it's not. As a, I don't know.
I mean, Asante's peak was like, I thought after his rookie season, he would be able to become like that next true cornerback one. And he kind of leveled off, which is fine. He can have a very good NFL career that way. But his rookie season, I thought that he was truly going to like make that next leap. And then year 2 started the season with like the coolest interception I've ever seen in my entire life. That interception on Devontae Adams.
Yeah, man.
And even though he got kind of cooked in that game, that interception, I was like, okay, like the year 2 leap's going to happen. And then again, he just kind of leveled off. Still was a very good football player. Wherever he ends up, I wish him nothing but the best. It sounds like his market is kind of stale right now, but Byron Murphy, some of these other guys have signed, so there's not really a ton of other corners left outside of Asante, and your guy Rasul Douglas is still out there.
Come on, guys, make it work.
Yeah, a lot of super chats tonight. Appreciate it so much for you guys. Nicholas with another one says, "Are you willing to admit you are mad at Ortiz/Joe?"
Is that just Joe Ortiz?
I think he maybe meant Ortiz/Jim.
Oh, am I mad at them? No. Ask my students. I don't even really get mad. I've only been mad at one individual before, and that was a fun season.
Yeah. Not mad, but I'm confused, and I'm anxiously awaiting to see the vision because there are they still have, I think, like rough estimate, probably around like $65 million in cap space to go spend, and they need to spend it. Like they need to go make some other signings. So just anxiously awaiting, even though I didn't love how today went. Again, they still have tomorrow, they still have Wednesday, still have the rest of free agency. They can make some trades, whatever. But I understand why fans are frustrated for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Visionary says Najee brings so much more to the team than just a hard runner. Great person. He is a great person. Certainly overcome a lot in his life to get to this point. He says, I appreciate y'all. Been watching since Sam Tevi was our starting tackle.
Good days.
Good days. The 60 pressure allowed season from Sam Tevi. Although his last year with the Chargers was actually pretty good. But
yeah, it wasn't bad.
Utah legend. Had a couple classes with Sam Tevi actually back in the day. So good guy.
Nice.
Not a good NFL tackle, but that's okay.
Oh.
Wasn't here, but what does this mean for JK? I expect him to go elsewhere. Unfortunately, would have loved to see him come back, but I think he will sign elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm very curious what his market ends up being.
I don't even know who needs a running back still. Who needs a running back?
Denver.
Denver does need a running back. Come on, our lads, hurry up.
Yes, to MMG's burner account, Gus Edwards was released on Saturday.
Yeah, officially was today, but yeah. So yeah, our lads is not working, but there are other teams who I think will use JK. I think the Cowboys could make some sense there.
The AFC West in general.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up on the Chiefs, to be honest. Blake says, sorry with Scat. I mean, he might fall late because no 40. That's fine. I think we understood what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
James Carey says, our coaching staff is mostly from college. Isn't it smart to use their knowledge built through the draft in the next few years for long-term success?
Yes, but your number of players you recognize from time in college dramatically reduces with years. So I think by next draft, half these guys have transferred, injuries, yada yada. So sure, use that knowledge, but I think that starts to go away after a while.
Yeah, I think you probably have like a 3-year window of where you could at least feel like comfortable with knowing who guys are. And then obviously you still have connections to the rest of, college coaching industries, but things change very, very fast in college football, just like they do in the NFL nowadays with the transfer portal and things like that. So building through the draft is exactly how this team wants to operate. It's how the Ravens have operated for 2 decades. And it's funny. I pointed that out on Twitter and everybody was like, well, the Ravens haven't done shit for 10 years. It's like, well, they're a threat to win their division every single year. They make the playoffs basically every single year, regardless of who's starting at quarterback. I mean, they almost won a playoff game with Tyler Huntley starting at quarterback. And he's my guy, one of my favorite Utah players ever. But the Ravens have done so much good. Yeah, they haven't gone over the hump recently, but raise your hand if you'd rather have the Ravens' success from the last 25 years instead of the Chargers. So I found it funny yesterday when people were like, oh, the Ravens haven't done shit. Really? Us as Chargers fans are saying
what
that?
have the Chargers done?
Yeah. So there are worse franchises to replicate your model after. So I like specifically at receiver, the model is draft and develop, and you sign supplementary veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you guys are going to head into every offseason thinking they're going to trade for a big receiver or sign a big receiver, it's just not going to happen. I think you're just setting yourself up for disappointment that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny when I got a bunch of mentions like, well, the Ravens haven't done shit. Really? We're saying that as Chargers fans?
Yeah.
Our last super chat. Oh, we have a couple of other ones. Okay. Is Najee being on a 1-year deal bridge running back? Hampton is still in play from Breeze B.
It gives you flexibility. And I don't think at this point he'd return. They clearly letting these guys go. And if Najee works out as they hope that he would, like that next contract, you don't want to pay him. So yeah, I think it's a 1-year deal. Bridge, sure.
Yeah. Bridge to another running back. Yes, I think that's technically true. But I paying Najee $9.5 million and drafting a running back at pick 22, that's a really, really poor allocation of resources because part of drafting a running back in the first round is being able to maximize how affordable he is. Whereas if you are splitting carries between a first round pick and a $10 million back, that's not super smart from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. But I think this has got to be the only year he's with the Chargers. Yeah,
I would hope so because he's very close to hitting the running back cliff from a carry standpoint. He's got, I think, based off of the last time like the reports were updated, I think he's got like 300 carries and maybe like 350 carries before he really starts to decline as a runner. And I don't really want to be around for that decline to happen when he's already not been super efficient.
Yeah, especially because if he does well, he earns what, $15-16 million a year after that. Ew.
Yeah, I'm very surprised this is a 1-year deal, I have to say. Aether back says, give me Genty, coach, please move up. Yeah, I get it. Answer Genty is super fun, but they probably would have to move up to like pick number 5 to make that happen. So that's definitely not happening. But I appreciate the super chat, and I like the aggressive mentality that Aether has tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so James back with another one says, who is your top 3 available free agent guards?
Fries. I will go with Becton, and I will trust Brandon Thorne on that one, and then I still feel Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah. If we're not talking about the Chargers, I think Becton is probably second. But specifically for the Chargers, I will throw Will Hernandez into that boat as well.
Okay, you've mentioned him twice now. Like, Is there something I'm not like getting, or are you just like feeling that one?
Oh, Kevin Zeitler. Yeah, I take that back. I'll put Kevin
Okay.
Zeitler at 3 instead.
Yeah.
But Will Hernandez, I think, he was like 15th in gap scheme run blocking grade in 2023. He does kind of fit like the size profile. I thought initially he was in New York with Andy Bischoff. He was not. They missed each other, but they do kind of overlap in some kind of scheme. I think that makes a lot of sense from that standpoint. But that's kind of where we're at with the guards. But Will Fries, I think, is probably comfortably number 1. I'm surprised, frankly, that he hasn't signed yet.
Yeah, me too. Especially with all the money being thrown around.
Especially Aaron Banks signed. Patrick Ben Bredesen signed pretty early. That was a re-signing. I was like, okay, like maybe the guard market will come off the board really quickly, and then it was kind of a slow burn. Patrick McCarry was at like I think $12 million per year, which is kind of crazy to me. Would have liked that at like $8 million per year, but yeah. So the guard market was a little slower today than I thought it would be, considering all the buzz was like the guards, and then defensive tackles like flew off the board and corners like flew off the board. So there's still a good amount of guards out there.
Yeah.
Man, 36 super chats today.
Yeah, man. Holy cow.
Our last one here for now, at least. Jose says thoughts on Amari or Diggs as day 2 options.
Amari, yeah, it's fine. I will not be able. I won't get up here and be like, "Yo, my gosh, Amari Cooper." But that one, at least, I see there's connections.
Sure.
And you can mine more value out of that one. Like I don't believe Roman is like that guy to just really get tons of value out of Amari Cooper, but I trust them having so many connections to him. And Herbert, of course, that that one I buy. Diggs, again, late October, I think it's October 29th, he tore his ACL. I'm out on that one.
Somebody was asking about George Pickens to the Chargers.
Rumored through Sports Illustrated. I think just because, Metcalf's over there, so now Pickens.
You know who also tweeted about this is ML Football. So I think we're good.
I don't know. He has to be blocked, I think, so. What are the Amari Cooper connections? Good question. Sanjay Lal with the Cowboys.
Yep.
And then he was on the Raiders with Navarro Bowman and Khalil Mack, believe it or not. Mack, I understand. Bowman, I forgot. So, yeah, there's some connections on the offensive side and then some players.
There was somebody else there, wasn't there?
I had those 3 for sure.
Okay. I thought there was another one. Is Cooper another DJ Chark? No. I mean, the Chargers got like 20 yards out of DJ Chark.
And a touchdown.
Okay.
Week 18.
Yeah. No, Amari Cooper is better than that. I just think like the cost to acquire him is risky, but he would be an upgrade for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people asking about Trey Pipkins. We talked about that before. I think they're just waiting to see what they can potentially get in the swing tackle market. So right now, I think the plan would be essentially, assuming they do sign a guard, Trey is your swing player, and he's an expensive swing player, but him as a backup, I think is not the worst thing possible. And they don't need more cap space. Like they're fine on cap space.
Right.
And if they feel like they can trade him later, I think that's kind of what they're waiting for. Pipkins is trash. I don't agree. Like he's not a great player, but he is a serviceable backup, who can start at tackle in a pinch. And those players do have value, man. Like he was a good, solid right tackle for this team for 2 years. The transition to guard was not great. I get that, but outright calling him trash, I do strongly disagree with.
Yeah. Difficult to call a player trash. I don't trash. I think just also applies to like your character, and that's not Pipkins.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, man. What a turnout. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully tomorrow's a little bit more positive. We'll see what happens. Oh my goodness, right? Classic as we get to jump in here. James with another super chat. What happens to JK? And if he stays, he better keep his number 27. By the way, love y'all. Go hard in the mother effing paint. Like I said, I think JK will go somewhere else. It's a little frustrating, but they're not going to pay 2 running backs. Like, I don't think that's something this front office will do.
Yeah, unlikely. But
thank you for the super chat.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else you're interested in tomorrow? Just like final thoughts there. Any free agents that stand out to you?
Not any additional names we haven't already mentioned.
Okay, I agree. All right. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow night. Hopefully there will be some more signings. Hopefully we can talk about some more positive additions here. So yeah. We will see you guys tomorrow. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. Until tomorrow, bolt up.